Hello, my loves. Hello, my loves. And welcome to Monique and Sidney's Open Relationship. Hey, Daddy.
Hey, Mama.
We ready to do it?
Let's go.
Well, today is an exciting day because this is going to be our first show that's going to go into our YouTube channel.
That's what's up.
So you feeling as excited as I'm feeling?
I'm feeling more excited.
Hey.
If that is possible.
So listen, was it yesterday or the day before that Dr. King, they were celebrating 50 years when he was assassinated, right?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday, 50 years of when Dr. King was assassinated. And I think that that's something that we should always remember. We should always cover. We should always talk about. However, there are some people that was in that civil rights movement and that was very important to that movement, but you never ever hear about them.
Mm-hmm.
You never ever discuss them. And as we're in this space of inequality, and we have this inequality fight oftentimes with saying what the white man not doing and how it's unequal and how, we need equality.
Right.
But there are times we don't have equality inside of our own race.
That's it.
With our own folks. And you ask yourself, how could some of these people that were very important to that time go unnoticed and unspoken about?
You say how?
How? Well, goddammit, I want to speak about it.
Speak about it.
Because Robin, who is our librarian and who is our research guru, she's going to research the shit out some stuff. And I have been talking about a sister named Ella during the civil rights movement, right? And I've been talking about her, what would you say, about a couple years? Where this woman named Ella was just on my spirit, that there was a woman, she didn't march, she cooked the food, she gave me that dark liquor, and she had a little house that, had a couple little girls, not little girls, but grown women in there where the fellas from the march could come to the house, get something to eat, something to drink, little pangaline. That's what we're going to call it.
Okay.
Okay, and I called her Ella. Well, I kept saying to Robin, I really believe Ella existed. I really believe she existed. So Robin calls me in the office one day and she says, hey, I found something. I was doing some research and I found a woman by the name of Georgia Gilmore. Now I know y'all are saying, hey Mo, who is Georgia Gilmore?
Some of you, because somebody knows.
You right, baby. You right, Daddy. I just assumed.
Mm-hmm.
So if y'all know who Georgia Gilmore is, put it down. Put it down in the room and let's see if y'all know who Georgia Gilmore is. Because everybody I've asked thus far, who is Georgia Gilmore? They like, I don't know. Did she go to the school I went to? Like, nobody knows who Georgia Gilmore is.
Right.
So we're going to share who Georgia Gilmore is.
Kick it.
Okay. Georgia Gilmore. Yes. And they put in, I don't know. Right. Here we go. Georgia Gilmore, meet the fearless cook who secretly fed and funded the civil rights movement. In December 1955, after Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus to a white man, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and other black ministers and community leaders organized a citywide bus boycott and protest. That part is well known. Less well known is the story of Georgia Gilmore, the Montgomery cook, midwife, and activist whose secret kitchen fed the civil rights movement. When King and others held meetings of the Montgomery Improvement Association at the Holt Street Baptist Church, Gilmore was there, selling fried chicken sandwiches and other foods to the African American men and women gathered there who pledged not to use the city's buses until they were desegregated. Gilmore pulled those profits back into the movement, as John T. Edge recounts in his book, The Pot Liquor Papers, A Food History of the Modern South. Gilmore organized black women to sell pound cakes and sweet potato pies, fried fish and stewed greens, pork chops and rice at beauty salons, cab stands, and churches. She offered these women, many of whose grandmothers were born into slavery, a way to contribute to the cause that would not raise suspicion of white employers who might fire them from their jobs or white landowners who might evict them from their houses they rented. The money they raised helped pay for the alternative transportation system that arose in Montgomery during the 381-day bus boycott. Hundreds of cars, trucks, and wagons that ferried black workers to and from their jobs across town each day. Gilmore's cooking helped pay for the insurance, gas, wagons, and vehicle repairs that kept that system going. She called the group of women who worked with her in this project the Club from Nowhere, because as Betty Gilmore, Georgia's sister, told Edge years later, it was Gilmore told years later, like, where did the money come from? It came from nowhere. So whenever they asked this woman, where did this money come from? They would say it came from nowhere. Gilmore would attend MIA meetings at the church and announce how much she'd raised that week, eventually inspiring other groups of women in town to start a similar endeavor. In February 1956, a Montgomery County grand jury indicted King and dozens of other boycott leaders for unlawful conspiracy. Gilmore was amongst those who testified at King's trial. As the late Reverend Dixon told NPR in 2005, everybody could tell Georgia Gilmore didn't take no shit. You pushed her too far, she would cuss your ass out. You pushed her any further, she would beat your ass up. Now, let me be clear. The Reverend Al Dixon did not say that. Those are my words. Okay? What he said was, everybody could tell Georgia Gilmore didn't take no jump. You pushed her too far, she would say a few bad words. You pushed her any further, she would hit you. That's the Reverend saying. My saying is, she cussed that ass out, and if you kept running your mouth, she whipped your ass. Come on, Georgia, talk to me now. Georgia brought that fighting spirit to the courtroom. She fearlessly denounced the white bus driver who had kicked her off a city bus from the witness stand. These are Georgia's words. When I paid my fare and they got the money, they don't know if it's Negro money or white money. That's what she told the judge. The testimony made Gilmore a hero to local blacks, but in the white world, she became a what? Pariah. Gilmore lost her job as a cook at the National Lunch Company, though Edge says it's not clear whether she was fired or resigned, knowing her testimony would lead to her dismissal. King lived a few blocks from Gilmore and was a fan of her cooking and activism. Whenever VIPs would come to town, he would always have Miss Gilmore cook up a batch of chicken. Nelson Malden, one of King's barbers in Montgomery, recalled in a 2005 interview with NPR. When she was fired from her restaurant, Reverend King said, well, why don't you go into business for yourself? And so she did. With King's support, Gilmore turned her house into an informal restaurant. Robert F. Kennedy came, Lyndon Johnson's been there, Dr. King bought him. Gilmore's son, Mark Gilmore, who died in 2008, told NPR. Now, it was important that we share that story. Because if y'all are listening to that story, what it is saying is, that woman was fired. They turned her away because what she was doing was taking a stand. And that is her
I don't know if
picture.
y'all can see her, but that's a big black woman.
Come on.
Right there. There's some big black soldiers and some big black arms and a big pretty smile.
And she had a whole front tooth missing, which means she took her ass whooping and she gave one.
Come on.
Because when you have a whole front tooth missing, that don't just fall out. And what I dug about her was, see, in my humble opinion, Daddy, Georgia Gilmore was that one that had that real conversation with Dr. King. That was the woman that said, listen here, Martin, and all that walking and shit, I'm not into that. Because them bitches get to spitting and spraying water and shit, and you know I'm going to fuck it up for everybody.
Everybody.
So I'm going to just fry this chicken. I'm going to have some dark liquor. I'm going to have a couple women here when y'all get finished. I know what you like. But tell Jesse don't bring his ass here no more because he don't like to pay for shit.
Okay.
See, that's who I believe Georgia Gilmore was.
There it is.
I believe when Dr. King said, you know, Georgia, I may walk my people into a burning building. And I don't know what to do. She said, Malcolm, waiting for your call. Because I already talked to him. He said, tell Martin. Because Malcolm came over and got some of that chicken too. Well, he didn't really get the fried chicken because he was healthy. Okay, Malcolm got that baked chicken. He said, tell Martin whenever you're ready. I'm right here. That's what I think went down.
There it is.
That's what I think went down.
Well, that's all right.
And why don't we know about her? Why don't we know about Georgia Gilmore? That's a question that we really have to ask. Why don't we know about her? How come none of the brothers, in all of their speeches and speaking, how come no one ever spoke of this woman? When you watch the movie Hidden Figures, and what was the man that went to space?
Alan B. Shepard.
He went to space. What was the other one? The real popular one that we knew about.
I can't recall his name.
Glenn Roberts?
Oh,
Not Glenn
Glenn.
Roberts.
Yo, what was the man's
something
name?
Glenn.
Something.
John Glenn.
John Glenn.
John Glenn.
As everyone applauded John Glenn and the other white men that went up in space, they knew it was the sisters who got them up there. But you never heard about them until years later.
And I think that also what this is showing is the same black people that existed back then are the same black people that exist right now.
Mm.
We oftentimes think because we have new technology that things have really changed, but the same individuals that we hear about now, because they're individuals that are saying, well, why are you protesting Netflix, and why are you doing this, and why are you doing that? And what this speaks of is that everybody has their own way of doing their protest in their way, because everybody has their own individual assignment. So this woman was able to support the movement from behind the scenes, and obviously she wasn't looking for the notoriety. This came from obviously the heart. But when you hear when Martin Luther King said, I'm going to be going to jail in Alabama, and will y'all be coming down to go with me? And only 55 people showed up, and there were 5 ministers alongside of him. You are lost in history because you are under the impression that thousands of people showed up ready for the fight. So that now when we look at it in real time and we hear the support of many, but then you hear the negativity of many about the way in which you're going about doing things, the way in which you're going about handling things, it should not be shocking to those of us that remember history, because this is part of that history, and that we understand that there is a difference in thinking. There are those who are caught into what society says and the opinion of the masses, or what appear to be the opinion of the masses, and there are those who are free thinkers and say, that doesn't make sense, that we've got to pay the same amount of money as these white folks that are getting on the bus, but yet we've got to get on the back of the bus.
Come on.
And the way in which we support the movement comes in various fashions, but if you notice in our history, women are typically put on the back burner. And that's why it's very important for that husband of hers to sit next to her, because I was raised by women, nurtured by women. Women have treated me the best. And oftentimes when you hear the story of young black men, or especially in our culture, men of color, you hear about the high regard that they've had for their mothers and the high regard that they've had for their grandmothers. But then somewhere along the line, that high regard is lost in the woman that they choose to make theirs, or the women that they choose to lay with, and they're just someone for them to release their joy juice in.
Say it.
Someone to release their joy juice in, and then they are left, and you leave them to the side. So this is why it's important that we have these conversations, to realize and make people understand these things. There's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing. And you know, earlier, Daddy, I said inequality and equality. As we fight so hard for equality from the white man, we fight for it. And I saw Akon do a interview. And Akon said in this interview, he said, you're fighting for something you'll never get, because this place called America was never designed for African people. He said, so you're fighting a losing battle, because you're never going to get the equality and respect that you're looking for until you say, I'm okay with my own folks. I'm okay with... When we did the Monique show on BET, I got to share this with y'all. There were folks that would say, oh, it's BET. Oh, girl, oh. And we had to say, we okay with us. Now, if anybody else want to come to the playground, come on. But we're okay with us.
And
but
there was also a need for certain people who were producers, and their thoughts were, how do we get the white folks to come support what we're doing, to validate us? And our position is, it's not about the white folks, it's about all folks. But we're no good to any folks until we first focus on our folks. Because we are the crooks of the matter as it pertains to us, because on a regular basis, like for instance, to speak in reference to Isaiah Washington and having Kimberly Clayton Hirschman and read and have this information fall into our hands and then have her come on. If we were a news organization, they would consider that Pulitzer Prize winning work because of the information that we provided that had a man under duress for 11 years of his life, over a decade, over a lie.
Over a lie.
So when you see these types of things that are transpiring, and then you have people that are saying, well, why are you upset with Netflix? And $500,000 is a lot. And when people heard Kimberly Clayton Hirschman speak, what they then heard was that experience is similar to my experience. The inequalities are similar to my experiences. And we get caught up into the dollar amount and need to get caught up into the experience and what that amounts to as it pertains to the quality of our life, because the inequalities that we experience on a regular basis leads to the inequalities in our lives.
Come on. And that's the part where we continue to be lost, misplaced, confused, conflicted, because when you see our Latin brothers and sisters, when some shit go down, our Latin brothers and sisters lock arms and say, we're going to fight for it. Our Mexican brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, and I'm not saying all of them, but you see, they come together. They come together. I'm not saying all.
Well, I'll just say this. Because it is our community, we oftentimes take the approach that we are somehow a different breed of being.
Yes.
But we are not. The human spirit, or the spirit of who we are, there is no difference from a linear standpoint of one group of people than the other. Meaning, I've been in classes where, specifically a comedy class where, and I've said this before, where there was a young man who was of Jewish descent, and he said, I'm a poor Jew. I'm poor. So they don't talk to my family and I.
Mm.
And some of the most anti-Semitic people you ever want to meet in your life are Jewish people. And I've run into individuals that were Latin that said, oh man, you don't want to be a dark-skinned Latin where I'm from because they treat you differently than the lighter-skinned Latins. Well, this same dynamic exists amongst us as people of color, and we believe that sometimes we are enigmas. Not enigmas.
I'm not.
But enigmas. Simply because the hue of our skin and our focal point is us, we've been put in a position to make it seem like for some reason we are different than others from a standpoint of lower IQs, unable to comprehend. But what happens is, at the end of the day, we're in a position where we've been, as Akon said, put in a position not to win.
Yes.
Not to win. And we also have to take a level of accountability, because when you think about Africa, as Paul Mooney said, I'm pissed off at the Africans because after they stole us, nobody came to get our asses.
Well, but then you have to say, did they steal us?
After we were taken, or it was allowed for us to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
So the same people that existed here existed there. It's just us coming to a level of consciousness to be able to believe in ourselves.
Mm.
There's a level of fear that we have been taught that our Caucasian brothers and sisters have not been taught on this North American planet, because weaponry was something that they always used. And you can look up the major atrocities of all time. Rarely do you see, and I couldn't find anything that spoke about the slave trade, and I've heard that there was an estimated 600 million people killed over the 400 years, but now I've heard it minimalized to 6 to 7 million people that were killed over that 400-year period from England to the Americas.
You know, so much of our stuff is devalued. So much. But oftentimes, we devalue it.
Yes.
You know, I have an aunt, Bessie. And my Aunt Bessie will tell you when you say you are African, she will tell, baby, she gets offended. She gets upset. She will tell you, I'm not no motherfucker. These are her exact words. I'm not no motherfucking African. I'm Indian. Okay, sugar, I'm sure we all mixed up in there together. I'm sure we are. But it's as if to call her African, she gets offended by that. That's the same aunt that said, I'll never use a black attorney. I'll never use a black lawyer. I'll never use a black doctor. That's the same aunt. And when we're children, imagine that's being poured into us. As children, going in our grandmother's house, we playing, having fun, but you still hear those conversations. You still hear that. And if you're not strong enough to say, well, why won't you go to a black attorney or a black doctor? If you're just saying, well, because they didn't do it, I'm not going to do it either. Do you see how we mess ourselves up with equality and inequality? Even when we talk about the civil rights movement, this is just from me humbly. I would not have marched with Dr. King. Because that would not have made sense to me, as it still doesn't. You can't tell me if we walk down this street and we're walking down peacefully and they come and they punch me in the side of my face and you say turn the other cheek, I am going to turn the other one so I can get my fist ready to hit that bitch back as I come around with the strength. I'm going to turn it and strengthen up and come back. It wouldn't have made sense to me.
Right.
But when you think about what was the civil rights movement, it almost felt like you had to meet a criteria if something went wrong for them to pay attention. Because if we go back to this bus, it was not Rosa Parks. It was not our sister Rosa Parks who got put off of that bus first. What was her name, Robin?
Claudette Colvin.
Claudette Colvin. And because she was 15 years old and because she was pregnant, she didn't fit the mold of what a proper black person should look like.
And again, this is the self-imposed hardships that we place on ourselves because we believe, that's why they like, Monique, do you think you could have done it another way? Do you think you could have approached this another way? Just like Martin Luther King, could he have approached it another way? Malcolm, could he have approached it another way? Marcus Garvey, could he have approached it another way? The Black Panthers, could they approach it another way? And what happens is because we are all different, we must approach it in the way that in which we see fit. But to approach it is better than to not approach it in whatever way that you see fit. Malcolm tried to use Gandhi's approach, which you can respect, because there was a lot of us that got our asses whooped using that approach.
Come on.
Malcolm said, no, man, by any means necessary. We've got to fight back. But you see Muhammad Ali, he had his approach. You saw Jim Brown, he had his approach. You saw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he had his approach, Bill Russell. But the mere fact that these men approached it,
yes,
these individuals approached it, is something to be said. But to go back to the initial point, they say behind every good man is a great woman. And the problem is in this society, we forget about the great women. And we don't speak about them because they're empowered in a way that men simply are not. And to speak to how powerful women are and how in tune with nature that they are, it's the reason why they outlive men. You can't say we're the strongest sex, but we die before y'all asses. Okay? You are the conduit to life, but once we are born, we forget about the life that got us here in the first place. So there needs to be a level of recognition, and it's so bad that when you see a black man standing by his black woman,
come on,
that there is ridicule from black women because of that. This is a level of sickness that, again, has been imposed upon us, but we've bought into it. And now we've got to remove ourselves, in which we will talk about on another show, from the Enlil and Enki effect. The difference between individuals who are focused on the icon and those individuals who are iconoclast, who don't believe in putting someone up on a pedestal. because of what it is that they've done. You don't put Gandhi up on a pedestal or Martin Luther King up on a pedestal because these were mere men. But you put what it is that they were searching for and trying to accomplish, which was love. That's the pedestal that you pursue. So when we stop focusing in on having these human beings who are gods and focus in on the things that are going to bring us together, which are what they're talking about: love, equality, integrity, fairness. It doesn't matter what culture, what color, what sex you are. When you insert these things into your everyday life, watch how things start to change.
And they start to change for generations to come, because we keep passing on the poison. And what I mean by that, and as I said, Daddy, I said, and this word gets me every time. I said, when they see us together and they see you standing with me, it's an enigma. Bam. I got it right that time.
Get it?
It's an enigma because I can't tell you about the man that stood next to the woman in my family. Not one. I can't tell you about the man that I could look at, and I could look at this married couple and say, they was really down for each other. I can't.
And beyond that, we look on a daily basis. What I'm looking forward to is the day we see men standing with their women on the front line for this inequality. Because we see women are getting men into office. They're there when our children are murdered. When the men are murdered out in the streets, there goes the women again. But where's the support for the women so that it is reciprocated? And we've been put in a position mentally to believe that women should be subservient to the man, as opposed to willing to give and willing to take. And it should be both ways, because anytime you have a person that you could not be here without them. We can't be here without you as women. Plants can manufacture themselves. Female plants can manufacture themselves without the usage of a male. And there's some people that know that with the usage of marijuana, the stronger plants are those that are procreated by the female, and the moment the male comes into the play, there are more seeds in it that lessens the potency of it.
And they get to popping.
Okay, well then that's a personal experience.
No,
I
had read.
Okay.
With them seeds.
Okay, that's what it is. You had read all of a sudden.
Pat.
But so I believe Kanye just said that Kim Whitley had referred to Oprah as a god.
Yes, she did.
And that she'd be ashamed of herself. Well, what I will say is this, is that saying to Oprah that she is a god is not just poisoning the mind of the people who hold her up high. It is poisoning the mind of a sister named Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
Because what then happens is she then believes in that, or have the potential to believe in that.
Yes.
Not understanding that the gods are immortal and that she too has an expiration date.
Come on.
And despite all the money that one may have, let's talk about all the love that you have in your life.
Well,
let's share that, because when you hear a person saying that they are the light, okay, and you have to be the light, I can appreciate that. So enlighten people on what's more important than money. Because what I seem to hear most of the time that we, especially in our culture, get caught up in
is money. This is one, and I'm gonna show her a picture again. You see her? Georgia Gilmore. Look at that sister. I want us to get a good look at her. Georgia Gilmore, do we see her? Georgia Gilmore, do we see her? Do we see her? Do we get it? Do we understand it? Do we understand the importance that woman had to a movement?
And when you look at the aesthetics of who she is in our culture, we would assume that she would never be accepted by the white culture. So it is easy to put her in the background. It is easy to dismiss a big black woman named Monique, despite now being under 200 pounds.
Give it to me one time. Like it's okay.
Despite that, she's still a big black woman and she does not fit the mold of what beauty is supposed to be, of what the hashtag Me Too movement is supposed to look like. Doesn't fit that. But what happens is, when you don't fit the mold, that means you must break that mold. And then you utilize the gifts that you've been given in the way that you've been given it. Because again, when you hear the stories of Madam Teresa.
Who is Madam?
Mother Teresa.
I was going to say, wait a minute, what's
Madam Teresa, that sounds like somebody that's tricking. That sounds like somebody tricking out there. No.
Treating.
Mother Teresa, when you hear at the end of her life, when individuals read her diaries and she had done so much good for the world, but it was read that what troubled her most is all the work that she had done on behalf of the church. All the work that it alleged that she had done on behalf of God. She never felt any connection to the God that she was alleged to serve, and that troubled her deeply. And can you imagine how many people could have been freed had they known that while she was here? Because then you get a chance to understand, because when you hear the history of who we serve, and again, it goes when you start serving a being that you deem as more than, they move in mysterious ways. And this is not to say that you should not, because you got to do what's best for you. But when you hear the origins from people that existed thousands of years before us, and they speak about these individuals coming down on flying ships or boats, on dragons, wheels and wheels, they are describing beings that were space travelers. And due to the fact of their advanced technology, what other words could you refer to them as other than gods? So the insertion of being looked at as a god was inserted to us as human beings. And as proof of that, under normal circumstances, just when you hear the story and the origins of Adam and Eve, it is bizarre that the snake, who we describe as Satan, is put down because he wanted Adam and Eve to be given knowledge. But God did not want you to have the knowledge. And then just ask yourself, what one of you parents that are out there, what one of you who has a loved one, would you prefer them not to have knowledge? Would you prefer them to be naked in the wilderness and not know that they were unclothed? Or would you want them to know where they stood? And then we use terms like it is mysterious, God moves in mysterious ways. And that becomes an excuse as to why we wouldn't understand what it is that we know for a fact does not make sense. Why is it a sin for us to be jealous, but it makes sense for God to be a jealous God? And when we take that and put that into the Oprahs, into the Tylers, into the billionaires, they are looked at as gods, financial gods. They're looked at beings that are above us. But in actuality, are they?
And because we're being taught, unfortunately, get that bag. Get that bag. Fuck anything else. Get that bag. And when you see people that get that bag, it makes you start saying, what's the quality of their life, right? And I posted a picture when I was over 300 pounds next to the picture. When I was still over 200 pounds, but I had lost some weight. And when I looked at that picture, I said to myself, wow, how miserable was I? And that was at the heart of the Parkers. That was at the heart of awards and everything going on and but when I looked at that picture and I knew I was well over 300 pounds, I had this woman living this single life, right? Living mansion, luxuries, everything. But when all the lights went out and I was by myself in that bed, that's when the real shit had to start falling in. So because I didn't want to think about it or deal with it, that's when I would go get that 20-piece buffalo wing. Because that's going to ease it. That's going to take it away. That's going to make shit calm down. That's going to make it okay. Because I was so worried about it. Here was my thinking then, right? I'm going to just work so Shalon can have anything he wants. He ain't got to worry about what college he got to go to because I might can't afford that one. Oh, I'm going to just do it. But I was killing me with misery, with bad decision making, choices that wasn't the best, because I was just worried about the bag. I was just worried about the money. I was just worried about the fame. And God damn it, I was getting lost in all of that bullshit. Lost in it. And I was losing my mind along the way. Because what happens is when the focus is just on the bag and not on love, not loving and being loved, well, shit, go ahead and fuck the money. When you got cramps in your stomach, go ahead and do a withdrawal and lay that money on your tummy and make it feel better. When you need to just have a conversation in the middle of the night, say, fuck it, don't y'all know my position? I own things. I'm a mogul. It don't work like that, y'all. It don't work like that. And see, in history, unfortunately, sometimes we want to go down remembering the moguls, remembering the people that had all the money, but we forget about her.
Before you can forget about her, you needed to know that she
even existed. We don't want to know about her because she might not make us look good. See, Rosa Parks, she was attractive. She was a beautiful woman. She had a husband. She was fair-skinned. It made sense. She can represent us. She looks like the good Negro. But when you got a 15-year-old baby that's pregnant and she's not married, that don't make us look good. When you got a woman that got a tooth knocked out and she's a big woman and some will say, oh, Lord, look like Gloria Georgia enjoyed that food. God damn it, we did. But she don't look the part. And as long as we stay there, and I gotta keep saying it because it's in my spirit to say it. And as long as we got a sister named Oprah Winfrey, who in my humble opinion, this is my humble opinion, single-handedly put a dagger in our community. Let me just say that. And I believe single-handedly she's still doing the same thing because when you look at this woman through the years, where was she? When you look at her show through the years, how many of us was on it?
But the moment, if you notice, when the show or the OWN network was going through some failures because they were trying to rely on, was it Rosie O'Donnell?
It was Rosie
Katie
O'Donnell,
Couric?
Susie Orman. It was the animals.
Okay. And
yeah, she had the animals. Remember, she was doing the animals.
The Discovery Channel and the animals. And the moment that she was given the business model of, that the successful networks all start utilizing black talent, black people, because they support, as we did for Black Panther, which on another note, we get excited about the movie Black Panther and we getting sold another bad bill of goods because if you watch the message of Black Panther, you've got one throne that all of these people are fighting over and you're missing what was stolen from us. You're missing the fact that we were armed to help one another, but we allowed ourselves to be enslaved. We are missing that. And we're missing little things like humbly. When you see, and I hate the spoiler alert, but there's just this scene in there with Brother Bozeman, who played the Black Panther, and he's in the casino rolling the dice. No, he's putting his money on a number to come out, and he wins. And then all hell breaks out inside of the casino. And he gets up before he gets his money. And Stan Lee, the inventor of all the Marvel comics, then comes and sits in his chair and picks up his money. And to me, because I'm probably putting a lot on it, but the subliminal message is, black man, you'll make it, but I will take it.
Come on, baby.
Now, maybe that was just coincidental, but this is the world that we live in. So that when we see that enough, we start thinking, well, that's what we're supposed to do. When we see the fact that when you are light-skinned, that someone who may be Caucasian feels, and again, these are in not absolutes. There's nothing that we're saying that is an absolute, but these are things that have been seen. When you are light-skinned, you can be construed as a non-offensive black. That's what they will refer to them as. That is the reason why they were allowed to work in the house and so forth and so on. And then what happens is that separation creates a divisiveness amongst them because they don't have, that's not anyone's fault of the complexion of their skin, nor should it be held against them. But we who may be brown or darker skin, due to the ostracization that we receive because of our skin color, especially our darker skinned brother, now we feel the need to ostracize our light skinned brothers and sisters because they're light skinned and they're shown favor. Again, that is designed to divide us when we should be on some old, they can't help the complexion of their skin. Just like none of us had any say on what complexion that we would be. Because if we could, there's many of us who would abandon the black club. They would say, well, shit, it looks a lot easier to be white. Might as well go ahead and get that uniform. But the reality is we should be together in this. Because I've heard too many light-skinned people say, you don't know the troubles that I've seen just being light-skinned and just being left out of our own community. They our family too. When you're dark-skinned, the treatment that you get, as a brown-skinned man, for some reason, I never really felt like you kind of like in between. You kind of neutral. Like, all right, you ain't so dark and you ain't too light. You like, oh, you okay. I'm allow you, but you still experience a balance of both. So these are ways that we have been divided as a culture. And then mix that in with being a woman. Now you're at the bottom of the totem pole.
And we keep trying to fight for something that's not ours. It's not ours. It's not ours. See, had I been back in the day of Marcus Garvey said, fuck it, let's go. Let's go. We don't have to deal with this. I may have said, you know what, Marcus? Let's go. Because you keep our babies that keep getting shot in the street. This is not new, y'all. This is not new. And what do we keep doing? Stephen Clark, all of our babies. The list goes on. Stephen is just our latest one. We get out in the street and we march, and then the city writes a few $1 million check, then that one goes away, and then here comes the next one. What we understood with this right here, with that bus boycott, you know what we understood? We understood don't shit work with green. We understood don't shit work with them but green. And if they ain't making green, then they know we being mean, and they gonna try to do something to keep it lean. Okay, did I put it all together?
And humbly, we oftentimes ask, what should we do in order to change the world? In my humble opinion, we should put women in more charge of the world because they're protectors of life, not destroyers of it. Men, they destroy life. They destroy life. If you look at statistical numbers, they were speaking the other day, and I believe they said from 2000 to 2016, out of, I believe, 216 mass shootings, women were responsible for 4.4% of them. Men were responsible for the other amount. And I dare not look at, as terrible as people of color are looked at, whether you are Hispanic, Asian, African American, you could be Native American, there's no one that supersedes Caucasian men as it pertains to mass killings. But that Harvard will do a study in reference to how that black men will become poor when they come from rich families and go out on their own, but they have no reason why. But they don't do studies as to how could the most privileged beings in our society, which happen to be white men, be responsible for more serial killings, for more mass shootings that are not affiliated with religious beliefs and things of that nature, just because bombers, things of that nature. When you hear someone that is of color that went out and did something that was not related to anything from a religious standpoint, you almost begin to be shocked because you're very used to hearing that. And no one's doing a study as to why. And if so, I'd be interested in hearing it. But you'll demonize the young brothers out there that are fighting against one another. Well, them fighting against one another was no different than the Civil War. They were white men fighting against white men, but we were so brainwashed in the South that we wanted to show that we had a level of importance too, so we're going to fight with our oppressors.
Come on.
This is the world that we live in. And again, where does the black woman fall into it? Because white women, they're treated less than their white men, but they're still above black women. And the black woman has been responsible for nurturing everyone on the totem pole, but who nurtures her? So I believe humbly, if you want to change the world, we need to up the status of women. Not just women of color, but all women, because they have something to offer. But we cannot forget about our black women. And again, I hear the wonderful songs about putting their legs behind their head and all kinds of stuff.
Baby, what's
When
that?
we
Oh, baby.
Oh,
I can be a savage.
Yeah.
I can be a blessing.
I want to be a master.
Well, who is your woman?
Okay. So
I'm sorry, Daddy.
no.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
Okay.
These songs, they're great. But when it comes to real life, how are we going to treat our women? And if we don't have support for our women, I don't understand why you get messed up if you think your women don't have support for you.
Come on. And that goes back to the nurturing, in my humble opinion. We've lost our nurturing. Some of us, we've lost how to nurture our families. We've lost how to nurture our men. We've lost how to nurture our children. Because again, we so busy trying to be the fucking boss. We so busy trying to get the bag that we've lost the nurturing aspect of it. I don't know if I'm not watching a cooking channel. I don't know what reality show I've ever watched where any of those women said, goddamn, I'm going in this kitchen and I'm going to cook for my family. You know what? I'm going to rub my husband's back and then he's going to rub my back. I've not seen that. All I see is I want to go on a luxury trip. It's got to be blinging and it's got to be banging. But God damn it, where's the nurturing? And because we've lost the nurturing, and I have to speak for me, I'm just learning how to be a nurturer. And it can be challenging. Because again, I'm a Sagittarius. I'm a beast. And a man.
With a bow and arrow.
With a bow and arrow, I shoot the shit. But I'm just learning how to be nurturing and not be the aggressor, not her. Because a lot of us, when we are single women and we do have children, fuck nurturing. I just got to get it done. I got to work these 2 jobs. Listen, did you do your work? Did you do? So much is being missed and looked over and swept over. You almost say, do we know how to nurture?
And the answer is yes, we do know how to nurture, because for all of what you may not have been given as it pertains to your upbringing, all the nurturing that was removed from your life is where you fill in the blanks, because you know what you needed as a child and you know what you need as an adult. And that is the thing that you give to that other person. And as a black man who had an opportunity to be nurtured by his grandmother in a way that in real time I understood this is an anomaly. And I will never be nurtured by another woman like that again. In fact, it wouldn't be right to be nurtured by another woman like that, because at this point, I could do anything. You understand? Grandma was the type of person you accidentally burned down a church, but she wanted to know, well, who gave you the matches, though?
Nope.
Okay, I got them off the nightstand, Grandma. Okay, then. Well, Grandma got to put her matches up. But what she taught me was kindness. And she also, too, was a Sagittarian woman. And what she showed me was fairness. And what she showed me was how she cared about the community. Because, see, growing up, my grandmother lived East Preston Street, East Baltimore, okay? And back in the day, if you loaned somebody $5, that meant some shit. And if you told them you was going to come back with $5, $2, because, see, $2 back in the day, that'd get you a Pepsi, a couple loose Newports, shit. You gonna
some petty candy.
It allow you to get your ass, Mr. John coming through with the street number. You can get you 50. You can do something with that. Now, when Thursday come, if they don't see you, my grandma gonna remember that. See, that was back in the day when the man come down the street with the mule and the vegetables, and they went out there and got the vegetables from the man. I'm talking about back in the day.
But you gotta do it right. Watermelon. Goddamn cantaloupe.
Come on.
Bananas.
Come on.
Yeah,
now,
if
y'all can hear right there, you gotta understand my left ear. I'm deep.
Daddy.
A nigga is deep at this point. I can't hear. I remember.
Okay.
But I can't hear no more. But that being said, it meant something back then. And we got away from it. Because my grandma would say back in the day, now, I gave him that money. He told me he was going to come back. But guess what? He ain't got to never worry about me giving him that money again. These are the lessons. Oh, she say, be careful of the person that's always talking about you or always talking to you about everybody else when they leave the room, because they the same person that'll talk about you when you leave the room. Little life lessons. But there was a level of appreciation by her own sons that my grandmother never received. And she was so gangster, because I married Minnie Hicks. I married her. This is Monique Hicks. There was Minnie Hicks, the Sagittarian. And she said to me before she died, because I said, hey, I don't know how I'm going to make it without you. Because when she died, she was 91. She said, you going to be fine. But the other niggas, because that's how she talks. That's why when she says, I don't flinch, because she said, but the other niggas, watch how they are. And I watched my father, and I watched my uncle, and I watched how they were messed up, because they didn't realize the gem that they had when she was here. So us brothers who are here now, don't miss out on the gem that we have in our black women while they're here and while we're here to be there next with them, because they're going to be here when our asses are gone, because they outlives us. They're going to outlive us. That's what they do.
You know that.
Baby, just look at the statistics. That's why I'm saying when you look at women, they are designed and built to last in a way, unfortunately, that we are not. And we just accept that. But at the end of the day, all we're saying is, if we're going to remember the men, because we've done some great things, we've got to remember the women that were there too. Oftentimes I hear, and I've heard Martin Luther King Jr. or Martin Luther King III, and he get to speaking in reference to people are asking questions about his dad. And what I noticed that he always has to work in. Yeah, my dad is great, but I need you to understand he had a wife too.
Come on now.
And see, we forget about Sister Coretta.
Come on.
We forget about the level of strength she had to stand next to him.
Come on.
On a daily basis. We forget about Sister Betty Shabazz.
Come on.
We just talk about Brother Malcolm, but we don't understand the power of these women to endure the struggle from a side while they doing business. They got to take care of their family. So all I'm saying is, let's not forget our sisters.
You know, those brothers died young.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they were young men. And their wives were young women.
Did they outlive them?
They did that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to ask yourself, these were young women. Vibrant young women. And what was that life like when their men were taken? Because who was going to take Betty Shabazz on a date? Like, nigga, I fuck with Malcolm. What the fuck do you want to talk to me about? Who could have said, Coretta, I want to come and sit on the porch with you and do what, sugar? My husband was Martin Luther King, baby. Like, so how strong and amazing were these sisters that kept going with life?
And somebody said Winnie Mandela.
Oh, please, yes.
Come on.
Our sister Winnie, and we hope you enjoy your next journey, baby. But our sister Winnie, and we talked about her the other day in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And Winnie was like, listen, Nelson,
Mm-hmm.
I hear all this peaceful shit. I hear you. But the shit that they did, no, sugar. I'm not saying I'm starting no shit. But what I'm not going to do is sit by and let them bring some shit to us.
And I can't help but believe that she, at some point, had planned in her music box, I was going to say iPod, the big payback. Because it was like, we got to get some get back.
And I understand those women too, Daddy, why they would never marry again. Because I've told Sidney, I said, if you were to leave this earth before me, there could never be another man that I would want to be his wife. Never. Because my husband is loving me in such a way, I don't need to be another man's wife if my husband should leave before me.
Now she may give up that booty a little bit from time to time.
Okay, because
she don't give up the booty. Because I'm like, girl, don't give me that. Give it up. But you almost like, listen, how the hell you gonna follow Martin Luther King? How you gonna, you out on a date with Coretta? Like how?
How?
Like what you doing? Listen, Coretta, I'm gonna have to holler at you later tonight or something, side or something.
She'd be like, listen, Lil Martin and Dexter, they don't play that.
They don't play that.
So we gonna have us some coffee and call it a night.
Just call it a night.
All this coming over after they go to bed. Are you out your damn mind?
Right.
But think about that, though, sisters. That's why we can never forget our sisters because, yes, they were married to the men. And I'm sure some of their decision-making was based off the conversations they had with their wives. Because that pillow talk is something special. That pillow talk was able to let those men go back out and do what needed to be done. Because did it get weary? Did it get lonely? And see, as much as we celebrate Dr. King right now, again, back then, there were those scared niggas that said, nah, Martin, if only 55 showed up to go to jail. But now it's a national holiday. Where was our national asses back then? Where were we back then? So just like right now, with this boycott of Netflix, and yes, we're going to keep saying it, and when people say, well, Moni, don't you think that was drastic? You goddamn right it was drastic. It was so fucking drastic, but isn't inequality drastic?
And when you hear people now giving her props for bringing these things to the forefront, which allow other shows that are in their third year that were hits to now finally get a raise and go from 25,000 in their third year in their first year and second year and third year, and at the end or in their fourth year can expect 250,000. Well, understand, after the second year of Friends, they were making $1 million an episode.
Come on, they went into the second year.
They went into the second year making $1 million an episode. So there's always a difference. There's always a reason. and there's always an excuse. And in addition to that, when you're dealing with something that happens such as this, you can't feel sorry for yourself.
Mm-mm.
You must endure the challenge that is put in front of you. Meaning, despite all the challenges that may be associated with speaking out in reference to Netflix, speaking out in reference to Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Lee Daniels, none of this is being done in animosity. It's being done in an objective way to say, listen, why are we doing these folks the disservice of allowing them to continue on doing the same thing when there's a possibility that Oprah Winfrey is truly the light, and that she would say to enlighten people, you know what? I've reflected on the reason and on the fact that they've called Monique difficult because she elected not to promote a movie for Lionsgate when she had no deal with Lionsgate or any contractual agreement. And in my silence of that, I was also a part of the problem. Brother Tyler Perry, I don't know if you understand the magnitude of what will happen the day in which you follow through on your promise, so that people will understand why it is important to speak up in reference to people who are a part of the inequalities, and you issue the public apology that you said you would. And anyone who's paying close attention should understand this. If what we were saying was a lie, they would have sued us at this point. If what we said regarding Tyler Perry was a lie, why would they not sue us? Why would they not? In all of these shows that they've been on, why is no one courageous enough to ask them one question? Why is no one courageous enough to ask Lee Daniels, well, what made Monique difficult? And was she not difficult on Shadow Boxes because you wanted to do another movie with her? We've got emails where it went from, I never issued her any offer to play Taraji's part in Empire, which Taraji's supposed to be playing that part.
Can't nobody be Cookie but Taraji.
Come on. But that said, don't act like you didn't do something that you did. And why would you do that if she was so difficult? So we have to ask ourselves these questions. And why would a woman who knows what she's up against, and why would that husband of who
hers,
knows what we're up against,
yeah, that husband of mine,
why would we go against juggernauts in the game? But we choose not to attack Tiffany Haddish. We won't say anything against her. We won't say anything against that young sister that was on the reel. We ain't trying to beat up Kim Whitley. Ain't trying to beat up, what's the sister? Cheryl Underwood. No. Because Whoopi Goldberg. Not trying to go after them, but have to bring them up to make a point that fear, which stands for false evidence appearing real, is real. See, fear is real. And when people are under the impression that if I side against the powerful, they might get me too, we understand that. So there's no need to go after you. We just want to address the powerful. And again, not call them out, but call them up to raise their consciousness to be the light that they say they are.
Oh, baby. It's that time.
It's that time.
You know, we want to thank y'all every time y'all come and y'all share with us and y'all play with us. And the name of the show today is Who is Georgia Gilmore? And we have to keep having these conversations so Georgia Gilmore doesn't become another hidden figure. And when you look at that pretty woman right there, that's a pretty woman right there. It looked like she's saying right there, let me fix my hair, or I have to say some shit to somebody before y'all click this picture. And y'all know I'm trying to get my shit together. It's because of sisters like that I can sit where I sit, unapologetically. Because when I do read those stories What those sisters are saying is, baby, you got to stand and you got to be fearless in your stance. Point blank. You've got to be fearless in it. And I know Sid said to me, he looked at me the other day and he said, Mommy, did you think this was going to be a cakewalk? Is that what you thought it was going to be? A cakewalk? Because anytime you're fighting for change, what I didn't think was that my own community, not all of them, and a small fraction of them, I have to say a small fraction of them will say, Monique's stupid and crazy.
But that's just because there's a level of follow-up to history that she's doing right now as to why she didn't think that. And to paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King, because I don't know the exact quote, I believe it went a little something like this. In the end, you will not remember the harsh words of your enemies, but you will remember the silence of your friends. If you're a friend to someone and you see them going through it, you cannot be silent because you're worse than the enemies who speak aloud harshly. So to that end,
we want to thank each and every one of y'all, and I got to take this time out, Daddy, to thank the people that came to the show in Grand Prairie, Texas, at the Horizon Theater. I want to thank y'all, babies, to walk up on that stage to that packed house. I want to thank y'all, babies. That show was one of those shows that was absolutely, where I've said to Sid, I came out of me and I watched that woman on stage perform. It was one of those kind of shows. So thank y'all, my babies. Don't forget May 12th.
12.
May 12th.
What?
May 12th. That's my ocean breath. May 12th. Apollo Theater, Harlem, New York. The Mother's Day show, baby. It's going down. So thank y'all, because y'all could have been doing anything else today. Do us a favor. Tell a friend, tell another friend, and then tell 10 more friends.
YouTube.
So, YouTube. Yes, my daddy. This will be immediately uploaded to our YouTube channel, Monique Worldwide. So y'all can see it in full and keep on sharing it and keep on passing it because this show ain't nothing but about love. So like my daddy always says, the mind is like a parachute.
it is no good unless it's open.
We love y'all.
For free.
Mwah. Thank you, my sweetness.
Thank you, baby.